There are many challenges currently in relation to free speech and freedom of the media worldwide. I would, in a way, put them in two groups. The first one is safety, online and offline, and not just safety of data, but safety of people that are engaging and communicating online. And the second one is legislation that is introduced in order to protect citizens, so security issues or privacy issues that are potentially damaging critical and free voices engaging online. As I said, challenges are great, but solutions are somehow dangerous. And we see these solutions in the countries in transition, like this part of the world, but also in so-called old democracies. In the name of security, we are introducing certain legislation that potentially has damaging effect on free speech and freedom of the media. In my work, I do warn all the time, but we also offer solutions in recommending governments in which directions not to go, in order to push them to engage with civil societies and all other stakeholders to find solutions. In most of the cases, we see hasty solutions, hasty moves by the governments trying to protect society, and who would challenge this? We need to live in a safe world, but we cannot live in a safe world if we can not freely express ourselves. So how to come together? I would say it has to come as a hand in glove. It has to be something that is intertwined, interconnected. We cannot talk about security without free expression and respect of human rights. At the same time, we cannot talk about freedom in general without living in a secure society. So the challenge of our time is how to find a solution. I would not say balance, because there is no balance there, but how to find a solution in order to preserve universality of the internet, open, free and safe. So it's not just wonderful words on paper, but it is reality of our time, is something that is bringing people together, is something that is building bridges with bearing in mind and really recognizing the threats that we have on the internet. So this is also something that we should discuss. Problems with pedophilia, child abuse, which is something that there is a consensus around the world, but also terrorism, extremism, and all other threats we have in our ordinary life. There are unfortunately too many examples in the region and beyond where we see attempts by the government to silence critical, provocative voices. There is almost no months that I do not have to raise my voice in relation to certain problems that are related to the safety, but also the issue of protection of sources that is now somehow a hot topic in old and new democracies. In the region, in particular, we had cases of very bad legislation, like the one I already mentioned during the conference, a law on public order in Republika Srpska in Bosnia and Herzegovina, then potential threats to people engaging on Facebook in Serbia, wiretapping scandal of journalists in Macedonia, which has enormously negative effect to free speech and freedom of expression, not just in Macedonia, but beyond, that there is a possibility to experience something like this, and the chilling effect it creates in the society and among journalists and NGOs. There are many other examples that I can mention, but I would also like to mention some examples from the Western democracies. For example, issue we had in United States that I also raised, protection of sources problems that New York Times journalist James Risen had to face. And, the good thing is that it resulted in a very positive outcome, so all charges were dropped. Then Associated Press, also in United States, and again, issue of protection of sources. And there were numerous other cases that I raised my voice. A new law that is discussed in the United Kingdom, so-called RIPA, that potentially can have very negative effect on protection of sources and investigative journalism. And cases are numerous. The important thing is that we join our voices and we raise these cases with the governments in questions, but also the responsibility lies with the civil society. That needs, civil society needs to show more solidarity, and we have to work on education. Education is a part that is somehow missing. There are many people that are not able to engage in this discussion because there is a lack of information, there is a lack of training and understanding of the benefits and at the same time threats we have in cyberspace. Our human rights are same offline and online. And this is not something that I invented. This is something that was adopted a few years ago at the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva, a resolution, I would call it a landmark resolution, that recognized, and all states agreed to it, that our rights are same online and offline. So let's implement this in practice. We at international organizations, and I would say governments, are very good in putting those wonderful words on paper and proclaiming that we are for respect of human rights, that we are for free speech and freedom of the media, and we will do everything to protect journalists and to ensure their safety. But somehow, what I see in practice as the OSCE representative on freedom of the media for almost 6 years is a different story. Again, we are good on paper, and let's do something in order for those words not just to stay on paper, but to produce something positive for our societies globally.